Hello and welcome to this session. Here we're going to be migrating a set of users from an M365 tenant into another M365 tenant. A very common divestiture merger situation where we're going to take workloads from one tenant to another. What we're also going to do is move the domain across and have all the identities with the original UPN or name that they had in the source target in the target tenant. So in this case, we're going to be taking people that are in the Cozy Mouse tenant. We're going to move them to the TCG E5 demo tenant. They have a domain in there which is MigrationFrog. We're going to migrate all the data across to the new tenant, and then we're going to be taking that domain as well. We'll move the domain across into the other tenant. We'll rename all the accounts, but importantly, we're going to move the machine as well. We're going to do a profile update on the PC. We're going to push out an agent to it. We're going to have everything done remotely. So really, we have to do very, very little on the machine itself. But the users are going to have a prompt to say, "Hey, your migration is done. You now need to log into this new tenant," which they will then do, and all of the profiles stays the same. So there's no need for a machine rebuild. There's no need to mess with any profiles. They will just continue working with exactly the same core set of system they have on their desktop without having to re-image or rebuild the machine to make that machine Azure AD joined, or should I say Entra ID joined into the TCG tenant, the target tenant. So yes, that does seem like quite a lot, but it is a very common task. I mean, we can move back-end information, great. We use MigrationWiz all the time. We move, the mailboxes, the OneDrive, and move everything across. But really, what we're concentrating on here is how do we integrate that at the same time with what we're doing on the machines? Because having a nice way to move the machines easily, just like I say with the remote agent and the push out there, it really does make the whole migration a lot easier. And this is why we've got the partnership here with the BitTitan side, and also the PowerSyncPro side of the house that does that particular migration of the machines. So as I say, I'm going to show you end-to-end how this works. I'll show you all the MigrationWiz work and also the PowerSyncPro as well. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go through a lot of the actual configuration of the tools, like the setup for Mailbox or OneDrive moves in the MigrationWiz tool, and also the building of that PSP server that you need to use to be able to do the migrations. There's lots of documentation on both sites about how to do that. What I'm showing you here is how we use all of those. Once they're set up and configured, how are we going to use these systems to migrate the data? So let's just jump in now and have a look at the source environment so we can see what we're bringing across, and also I'll just have a quick look around the target environment as well. In the source tenant here, the Cozy Mouse tenant, you can see from the active users, we're picking out 2 users that we're going to migrate from here. Now, if we look down the list, we'll find we have Lando Norris at MigrationFrog. You can see that's the other people are all Cozy Mouse, but he is MigrationFrog. And also, if I go back up slightly, we've got Fernando as well. So we're going to take these 2 users and migrate them across to the TCG tenant. If we have a quick look at Lando's account, we just have a look at how much mail he's got. You can see there he's got just under half a gig of mail. And on OneDrive, you should have a decent amount in there, I think, as well. Yeah, about a gig of data in OneDrive. So that's a good amount for a demonstration to show you it migrating over. So, and let's have a look now at his computer that he's got set up to. Now in here you see I've just remoted into his computer, and if I have a look at his Outlook, you'll see that's all that mail. You can see a lot of junk mail that we subscribe to, just to fill this up with some usable demo data. And if we have a look under the File Explorer, we'll have a look. There's Orlando, the Cozy Mouse tenant. If we look at documents, you can see he's got some bit of music in there, things like that. But essentially, it is a machine that is configured. And if we look at Teams as well, you can see he's been chatting or trying to chat to Fernando there. So he's got his team set up too. So we'll drop that away. And if we have a look down here, quick look at his OneDrive setup, you'll see if I go into settings here, you'll notice that he does have, his MigrationFrog address all in here. So really this machine is, like I say, a usable computer for Lando. He's been using it for his day-to-day stuff, but we're going to migrate the data and also that domain across to a different tenant. And we don't really want to disrupt anything that Lando does on the machine. So we really want to have as little downtime as possible for this user for this migration. So let's configure up or have a quick look at the target tenant and just see what is in there, and then we'll configure the project in MigrationWiz to get this one started. Now we have already created the users in the target tenant. There are just 2 of them, and you can see there he is. There's Fernando, there's Lando. Now notice what we've got for the usernames. Now for Fernando, I've picked out a domain name that was already there as a live functional domain name, theplanium.com. But you can see Lando's one, we've used the onmicrosoft.com account, the TCG E5 demo account. Now this is important because this is where we're going to be piping all the data into, but also when we're using the PS Pro to do the sync of the machines, we are going to be looking in there for the matches between the two systems. So therefore it can then match up the GUIDs and it can perform that migration. So what I wanted to show you here was the fact that it's really the start of the name, the prefix of the UPN that is important. This name down the back here, in terms of a migration aspect, doesn't particularly matter in the target just yet. So that's important to know. But these are licensed; they're usable accounts now. So let's go ahead and set up that project. We're going to do OneDrive and a Mailbox project for these two accounts. Now, one of the prereqs that we have for setting up a MigrationWiz Mailbox project is we need the application registration done so it can talk to both the source and the target tenant. I don't have one set up in here just now, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to create one, just to show you how quick and easy that really is. We're going to do it on the source tenant. I've already got one on the target tenant. We'll use those details, but really all we have to do here, and I'll just run through this here. If we put in MigrationWiz as your name, for the application, we leave everything else the same. We just hit register. And that'll take us into our main screen. Now, obviously, the application or the client ID and the directory, the tenant ID, is what we need for the setup for the project. But the other items we want to put in there's three things we've got to do. So firstly, under authentication, we're going to tell it we can use the public flows, like so. Hit save. And we can also use the API permissions here, which we add. So permission-wise, we're very easy. We just need to add 2 in there, which we go to my APIs, my organization uses, and type in Office. That will come up here, Exchange Online. So we've got 2. We need one delegated, which is going to be the EWS, like so, and the application permission, which will be full access as app, as you can see there. So we just add those permissions in, and then we can do the grant consent for Cozy Mouse there, hit yes, and there we go. Now I will need to just do the secret as well, so I'll just do the client secret here, new one, and we just put in MigrationWiz as a name, and hit add, and of course now I can just copy that to clipboard as well. So really that is it for the application setup for a mailbox migration. We're just going to take that information now and pipe that into the project when we create it. So here we're going to say create project and mailbox, and we'll just give it a quick name and a customer, like so, and that'll take us into our endpoint selection. So I'll say a new endpoint here, and we'll call this one Cozy Mouse M365, and that will obviously be M365 here, and this is where we put in those credentials for the service account, that MigWiz account that we created. So I'll just put these in here as well, like so, and hit add. It'll take us into our screen where we can put this information in. I'm just going to, because I had that client secret in the clipboard there from before, I can just paste that one straight in there. But I do need that client ID and the tenant ID, which I will just grab from that tenant as well. Like so, and hit next step. It'll take us into our destination. So we're going to do a very similar thing here. We're going to grab that same info from the TCG E5 demo tenant. So I'll say new here and give it a name. And the endpoint is 365 as well, and I'll put in the admin username and password, which will then add and put in that same information, which we'll grab from the tenant now, which goes in there. We then hit next step, and we have the option to skip the credential check. I don't recommend we do that because obviously we want to know if there's an issue right now. But you can skip it if you do need to. Then we hit save and go to summary, which will then check those credentials and make sure that everything is correct and it can talk to both tenants. So we just hit save and go to summary. And I'm hoping if that jumps into that screen, there we go. That means it did make the connection and it is happy with those 2 application registrations. So that's perfect. We'll hit save project here. And that will give us into our add items to the project. So from here, I'm actually going to do the bulk add. I know we're only putting 2 in here, but it's nice and easy to actually just drop the information here for source email and destination. So I'll put these items in here so you can see how that's done. So putting those 2 in, you can see these are the source UPNs, the Migration Frog ones, we know about those. And these are the 2 accounts that we've set up in the target. One is the onmicrosoft.com account and one is the planium.com. Just to show you we can use either methodology on that one. And we just say Order new detected will be migrated. That's just so we can import them in. And they will appear in our list. There we go. So what I will do with this one, I'm actually just going to do a full migration of mail. I'm not going to need to do a pre-stage and then a full migration afterwards, but I will talk about those two very, very quickly. Because there's options when you start these migrations off. If I select everybody and say start, we've got the option down here. Verify credentials is very useful. It does check out that all the connections are good and it can see both sides for those accounts. So it is a good thing to run if you've got a lot of people there. Do the verify credentials first. And I'll actually I might just do that on this one just to show you it going through once I've explained these other two. But we have pre-stage and full. Now pre-stage does everything up to a point. Don't worry about the licenses yet, I'll come back to that one. Now if we do here, you can see pre-staging everything 30 days ago and backwards, and you can obviously put a schedule on that as well. But the idea with the pre-stage is so that you could take all of the mail apart from the last 30 days, just the mail, get it pushed over to the target, because that's the bulk of your work that that we need to do. Now when we do a full migration, let's say I do that one now and say full migration, it's going to say, okay, now we can do all of this other information, and it will do everything in the mailbox, which essentially is going to be just the last 30 days of mail, plus things like calendars, contacts, and rules and things that you want to bring over. It means that when you're doing a cutover, let's say you're doing one on a Friday night, and you kick it off at, let's say 8 p.m., it won't have to bring the entire mailbox, just the delta from the 30 days onwards. So if you're doing a big migration and you have to get it cut over in one go, absolutely. Pre-stage, pre-stage, pre-stage. Get that all done first, and then the full migration is going to be much easier when you actually do it. So in this case, I am going to do a full migration. It's just a demonstration. I want to bring everything over into that account. So we will go ahead and do that. I'm going to use the licensing. So what we need to do with licensing is you need to say apply licenses. Now I'm going to be using the UMB licenses for this one. So we'll just apply those, and away we go. And give it a couple of minutes and that will appear here, and then of course that error goes away. But what I will do here is I'm going to hit start and verify credentials, and you can see that goes into a submitted stage just to check out from both sides that this migration is going to be happy and is going to work correctly. Now while we're waiting for that to come back, let's go and set up our OneDrive project, and let's get that one kicked off and working as well. In fact, let me just hit refresh here and you'll see that license change. So there we go, quick refresh. User migration bundle is now active. Now you don't need to have a UMB license to do the verify credentials, so you can do that ahead of time if you're waiting for licenses to come through for your migration. You can still do all the setup, all of this, and the verify credentials, and get everything absolutely ready. So when you do have licenses, you can just hit the ground running and just get it all done. But for now, we've got that in a submitted stage. That is going to verify the credentials. So let's go and set up the OneDrive project and see the extra step we need to do in the back end to make that one work. Now the step we need to do is not create the application registration ourselves manually. There is a link we can use which will go and set that up for us. So if we go into the Help Center, and I'll follow it through so you can see exactly where this is. So we go to Perform a Migration, and we'll go to OneDrive and SharePoint here, and we want OneDrive for Business. Here we're just going to pick one of these, which is the versions and metadata, but importantly this goes through obviously a lot of the setup and everything that needs to be done. However, the part I'm interested in is down here. You can see this link. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click that, we're going to copy the link address across, and we're going to paste it into the two sessions we had with both tenants open, because that will then go ahead and create that application. So let me show you that. So in our source tenant, I'm just going to add a new one here, and we'll put that in. And you can see here I'm going to use the admin at Cozy Mouse to do this one. And there we go. SharePoint full control is what it's after, and accept that. And that'll drop us back to the BitTitan site like that if it has in fact worked, which it looks like it has. So we're going to do exactly the same thing now on the other tenant. So here as well on the TCG tenant, we'll just put that in. And there we go, there's our admin account. Exactly the same thing, accept that, and away we go. Bam, all done. So really what that's done now is it means that I can close that out, come back here, we'll go up to our projects, and we'll create a new one, which will be a document project. So we'll put in our details, project name and the customer, go to next step, and I'm going to say I've already got one set up for Cozy Mouse OneDrive on this, and you can see here all it's asking for here is the fact it's a OneDrive for Business endpoint, and we give it the username and password from that service account which we had before. And remember, it's important that it's part of the MigrationWiz security group in the tenant, and obviously is a member of that too. So that's where we set that one up. So that's our source, and we'll do exactly the same thing for the target tenant as well. So in the target, we've got an endpoint just called M365 there. You can see it's OneDrive for Business. We've got our username and password there, and we're using the Microsoft provided Azure storage for that. You can set up custom Azure storage if you want to, but I'm just going to use the default Microsoft provided version here. So we'll say update there, and we will say save and go to summary. So takes us into the main screen, and we'll save our project. And that is now ready to add some people in there. Now, because we've got the 2 users in the other project, we could bring them over from that. If we do add from MSP complete, we can then grab these people. Now, the only downside to doing this, if I do grab, let's grab Lando and Fernando there. When it brings them in, it's going to be stamping the destination email slightly wrong because it's going to match up to what's here. So you would have to go through and change it. Easy enough if you're going to do a bulk change. What you could do here is say change domains for the destination. And if it was everybody with this one, obviously this is going to work quite well. If I hit save and close here, it changes the domain. That's not going to work for Fernando. It's worked for Norris. Obviously Fernando is not in this one, so I go and edit him manually if I need to. If you've got a lot of mismatches like this, I would suggest just bring them in as a separate import and not have to mess with this type of thing inside here. 2 users, not really a problem, but if you've got a few hundred, then it becomes a bit more tedious to do that. So bring it in off your run sheets or your spreadsheet, whatever you're using to do your imports there. But the same way with this project, what we're going to do is we can see what we need to just check is the licensing. So we will apply those, and it's not going to use any more because it knows it's already got them allocated from the mailbox, and it links them to the source email address. You can see it didn't consume any more licenses when I did that because it knows it's got the UMB bundle there. Sometimes what we see is they actually pop up here automatically when you bring it in. Not so much when you do the add from MSP complete, but if you were to type them in or bring them in with the bulk add, generally they do pick up that user migration bundle activity straight away. So we'll give that a second. That will there we go. There's the refresh there. So again, what I am going to do here is do the verify credentials, just to make sure that everything is good before we just hit the full migration and bring everything over. So we'll let that run now. Let's have a look at our Cozy Mouse. I don't think that would have gone through yet. No, it hasn't quite just yet. I'm going to come back once these have verified credentials, and we'll kick off a migration on both the mailbox and the OneDrive, and then we'll move over to the machine and what we might need to do there in the PSP setup. Now, while we're waiting for that to happen in the background, this is a good opportunity to now jump into the PowerSyncPro. And as I was saying before, I'm not going to show you how to configure everything on PowerSyncPro in terms of setting up the server and getting done. I'm going to show you the main processes that we need to do to make this migration agent work so it can perform this migration task. Now, the key thing here is that what PowerSyncPro is doing, it is a full system where you can migrate into accounts and do other things with the synchronization service, which is what's set up here. So you do need to go and create the PSP server, put all the licensing in for that, and do that. What we're doing here, though, is we're using the sync service to look at the source tenant, the Cozy Mouse tenant, and also the TCG5 demo tenant as the target. And what we're doing is we'll have the database of the users on both sides, and then what we do is we run a sync job. Now, what the sync job would normally do is it would normally write those attributes, those accounts and objects with all the attributes into the target, but we're going to do a matching job. Now, what that does is it puts a binding link between, in this own PSP database, of what the source account GUID is and what the target account GUID is. Now, notice I say GUID there. It doesn't match it to the, well, it uses the match, obviously, for the name and the UPN, but then it binds the two GUIDs together. So when it's doing the migration of the machines, and it's rewriting those GUIDs and rewriting those the tenant IDs, it can obviously do that matching correctly. So we've got to pay close attention to the matching. So let's have a look at some of the basics of PowerSyncPro, and let's jump into how we're going to set up this sync job. So the first thing is, when you're in here, you can see I've already got them set up, but we have what we call directories. And you can see I've actually got 3 here because I had another tenant I was using here. But we have the Cozy Mouse source and the TCG source. Now, if we have a look at what is in there, you'll see it's got the name, and it's also got the tenant ID and application ID. It does require you to create an application registration in the background. Same thing we did for MigrationWiz, but it's going to be the same sort of thing. Now, that is in that documentation or thing you need to do there. I'm going to show you very quickly what it looks like in there. So if we jump into the source tenant, look at the application registrations, and let's just do a quick refresh here, and we should see, there we go, there's the one I made, PowerSyncPro, and that's all those details which we carried over. But what I'm interested here is the API permissions, which you can see here. This is the reading of all the data from one tenant. On the other tenant, on the target tenant, it's going to have write information for this, so it can actually do that. So that is what it would need. So really, with that in place, let me just go back to our PowerSyncPro window. There you can see that's that information. So what it does is it binds there, and if I look at the jobs run here, you can see there's our import containers, import objects. This is what we would be doing here if we say the jobs import objects. You can see I've run a few of these before, but what we do is we run them on the source tenant, and we can say, hey, we do a full import here, and we might want to run that job on the target tenant as well. And you'll see what it will do. You can see very, very quick. You can see it's updated 49. If there were new things happening, like new users, new machines, what have you, they would show up in here as well as the insert. Now that obviously runs on a schedule as well. So we will schedule that agent to run in a migration time, every hour or so, just to pick up any new machines that have joined, because not only does it need the user details, it needs the machine details from Entra ID as well, which I'll show you when we start looking at the machines and the agents that we're going to put on the machine. Essentially, if I just hit refresh on that now, you can see that one's finished, and there's no change to some of these particular items here. Now, the one we're interested in here is the sync profile. So if we look here with the sync profile, you can see I've got a match profile for the TCG moves. This is for this project, but if we have a look at that, if we go and edit it, you can see firstly it's a match only sync profile. Now this is very important. We don't want to be writing anything in the target in terms of the object IDs. We just want to run this as a matching job so we can move the machines and get those GUIDs matched up. So I'm going to edit that and show you here. You can see we set up object type is user, internal member, but you can see the sync action, very, very important, match only, and it matches on user. And you can see here it's no inclusions or exclusions I've put in here. But on the match, I've got it linked up to the mail nickname, which will be the prefix. If we did have the same on both sides, you could use different attributes, but I'm using mail nickname as our source and target attribute for that. So I'll hit save there. And that really is the job that we run. So if we run here and we run sync objects as a job, which you'll see if I say run job, the match profile job, and save it, you can see job queued. Again, happens very, very quickly, but it's going to perform that match. And you can see there's no change on it because I have run this one before. But what I'm interested in here, if we jump across to the migration agent, I'm interested here, if we look at translation table down the bottom, I want to see this one populated when we look at the target. Search there, and you can see now that is correct. We do have objects. So what it's doing here is it's saying, well, these are all the source object UPNs, and this is what it's found in the target, and there's the matching criteria that's happened. So you can see straight away, look, here's Fernando Alonso migration frog is matched across automatically to Planium, and Lando is matched across here. So this is correct. And this is going to work for us when we want to start the migration. It is really important that this matching table, or the translation table as they call it, is done correctly. You can see it's even got the GUID details for those objects, which is what it needs. So really, without having this matching done, clearly your migration is not going to work in terms of the machine move. Now again, all of this, there's a lot of extensive documentation on the PSP side, and you do need to go through and read the prereqs, the installation and the configuration to get it all set up. I'm showing you obviously the end result of doing all that and really what it looks like when you are performing this matching process as it goes through. Now what we're really aiming for here is to look at the agents. Now if we look at agents now, and we look at it, you can see there's no agents here. We haven't put the migration agent on a machine yet, so of course it hasn't checked in, hasn't done a thing. So that is our next step. And you can see here we've got the agent download, the MSI or the .NET. Normally I do the .NET one because it includes all of the prereqs for the MSI as well in one package, which is really good. So I'm going to keep this one, and that is that agent installer. Now we've got to get that to run on the machine, on the target machine. What I tend to do with that is I like to run them with Intune. I put the users into a group in Intune, and I push that out as an application. So I'm going to show you that on the Cozy Mouse side, what that actually looks like, because that is actually set up on there. So I can push the agent out to that machine through Intune and have it automatically appear with all the criteria we need. Because obviously we need to tell the agent where to pick up this information from. And you can see here I've got a DNS record here, pspserver.cozymouse.com, and port 5000 is what it's listening on. So the machines, the workstations, have to be able to see this address to be able to check in with this console. So you can see in the security groups I have one which is Intune PSP Migration Agent. I've added Lando to that group. We're only migrating a machine for Lando in this demo. We're not migrating a machine for Fernando, so we don't need to do him, but we are putting Lando in this group, as you can see. So he should get that agent to get pushed out to his machine. Now let me go into the Intune console so I can show you what I've configured there, because there is some stuff you need to do on the package itself. So if we're inside Intune here and I have a look at the apps, and if we go into Windows, you can see there's the application we set up, migration agent, and have a look at properties. This is the command line argument I wanted to tell you about. So you have the PSK. Now this PSK is what you create in the PowerSyncPro console. So we get that put in, and obviously the URL needed to attach to the agent. So that's all well and good. You can push it out with that. If you don't want to use Intune to push out, no problem. We can just do that ourselves. If you look at what I've got on Lando's machine, you can see I've got the run agent command line. If I edit this in Notepad, you will see that we have the source file there, and obviously that PSK set up, and the URL for it. There's actually one line. I know it drops onto two, but it is definitely one line as it goes through. So we're going to run that command. Let's get that agent on the machine. I know I put it into the Intune group. Putting it over the top of it is just going to think it's already there, so there's no issue with that. We just want to get this agent on this computer so we can see it check in with the console. Now when we run the agent here, if we do run as administrator, where we go, it is going to ask us some questions as we go through with the next finish event. If we were doing it with Intune, obviously it's not going to be doing that. So I'm just going to run through here. You can see it's picked up these items here. Great. Hit next. And it will install and put the agent on there for us. You know, just view that as it's coming through. So I want to show you that configuration and that first check-in that it does as well. Now it will continually check in as well, which is really good, and always be looking for things to do in the back end. So yeah, it's a great little agent actually. It works wonderfully. So hit finish here, and you'll find that down here is a migration agent, which is this guy. So if we go in here, and you can see check run books, you can see it's actually looking for work. So here, as we can see, if we go in there, it doesn't do much. Obviously, it just sits there waiting for things to do. We can do the refresh for what's going to happen, but essentially that is the important part. The agent is installed on the machine, and it should be, if we go back to our console, it should have checked in already, and it will be part of the process now. So if we look at that, back to our PSP server screen, we can see on reports and agents, then lo and behold, we have a migration agent for Lando's machine turn up, which is wonderful to see. And that is now ready to go. Actually, we can migrate this machine whenever we want to now, but we do need to do a few things to make that work. Obviously, we need to set up the runbook and then set up the batches for the PCs as well. So if we go to runbooks here, you'll see that I've got a machine move here. This is actually for a different one, so I'm going to be setting up a brand new runbook. This is a previous migration I did. I wanted to leave a nice blank one so we can set up this runbook, because what the runbook is, it's really how everything is working on that particular migration, and the batches are the machines that we assign to those runbooks, and we put the timing on the batches. So the runbooks are important because that really is the definition of how the migration is going to be working. So here we're going to say create a runbook, and we'll give it a name, and we'll say here Cozy Mouse demo, and source directories is no problem. We can leave those as such. It's going to see all the directories that it wants to have a look at, and you can see our target directory, which is important, is the one which is the E5 demo. So here we have then all the different tabs about what that runbook is really going to do. Let's run through all of these and just have a quick look at what they do and the important ones that will affect what you are achieving here. So here, startup wise, silent or show progress. I like to show progress. Users can see what they're doing. It's completely up to you on that. Now we do have migration in process images. You can put a background on it. We've got different usernames to fall back on if things fail. So I'm going to put one in here. We'll put Mark and just put in a basic password there, which will then remove that account after 7 days. That's just if things go horribly wrong on the migration, you can still have an admin account to fall back on to get in there. And if there's any particular commands you wanted to run as part of that, you can put them in here as well. So that's our basic screen for that. But the user experience is the important one, because what we do here is you can have a little QR code. Now this is really cool. When the migration runs, it brings up a little QR code that you can specify, and it will point itself to any website you want. It could be internal, could be external, whatever. The point is that then people might look at it on their phone while they're doing the transition, and if they need help, it could guide them to a help desk screen or whatever on the phone. So QR code is a great little add-on, which is good here. But what we have here is all of the items that relate to what the users see as messaging. So you can see here, window title, and it runs through all these different processes. And you can see we are migrating to target domain as it goes through. I'm not going to change much of this for this particular one. I'll leave it as a default so you can see what the defaults look like. But note that this is actually a really good thing. You can put little logos on there and actually make it really customized to what you want to do. So you can see the migration is available. It's ready to be run. That's the message. What they see when it says a migration starting. Migration will start in a few minutes. As I say, completely customizable. This is really awesome for setting up a really good experience for your users. You can really go quite deep into all of that. Again though, for this demo, I'm going to leave everything intact so you can see what all the defaults look like. But if we look at device state, we can see here, do we want it to be removed from a particular domain? We might say yes, remove it from Enter ID, and domain join it to Enter ID. That's important. We want to do those two. We're not going to rename the computer, but we do want to enroll devices in Intune. And we do need to set up that bulk enrollment token, which is important here. It's just reminding us we need to go do that. So let me come back to that afterwards, and I'll show you how to do the enrollment token there, because it would need that to be able to enroll the machine automatically in the Intune backend. If there's any permission updates, you can see here, yes, we definitely do want to add and remove permissions for these. If you don't say update, it's not going to do the transition correctly. So therefore, that is very important to do. And lastly, the app reconfiguration. We are going to say, yes, do reconfigure the applications. We are going to do the Outlook, as you can see here, which we will set that, but it forces them to actually log into Outlook again with the new UPN. But we'll do everything that we need to here. Set OneDrive and the Azure protection. I'm going to turn this one off. We don't need the one for this migration, but that's obviously up to you if you want to leave that on there. So we're good. And then what happens with the completion? And we can say, yep, leave alone if you want to run any particular packages. And if we want to uninstall the agent, I'm not going to uninstall it in this case, but you can tell it to uninstall the agent when it's done, which is nice to have, obviously. So we'll hit save on that. So that really is, oh, look at that. Nice error that we get as we're running through here. Source, OneDrive source. Yes, exactly. We do need to do that. On the OneDrive side here, you can see if we are going to configure OneDrive for Business, what is the source tenant and what is the target folder name. So if we come back to that, the source tenant is actually the the ID which you'd get through Azure. You know, when we're setting up those accounts for MigrationWiz, and we grab that the tenant ID, that's going to be the same. That is the Cozy Mouse tenant ID there, and also what the target folder is going to look like. So when it says OneDrive dash and then company name, this tenant has actually got OneDrive / the Cloud Geezer, which is what it's called. So we'll put those two items in there, and then we can hit save, and we can have that as an active runbook now, which is good. We can now configure these batches, and we could configure this move for Lando's machine. Now let's just revisit that the BPRT, the token that we need to be able to involve things in Intune, and we'll refresh that that runbook again. You can see here on the directories layout here, we can go and edit. What we can do on the bottom here is you can see generate bulk enrollment token. I've already done one here as it happens, but I want to show you that's where they come from. If we just hit the generate button here and we give it a name, which would be, in this case, we're doing here, and then you hit generate, that will actually bind itself to the tenant, and then you'll find it will then create this BPRT UPN, which it then allows it to join machines to the domain. So that is obviously an important step. So if I save that one now, so let's do that. We'll go back to our runbook, and we will look at this Cozy Mouse demo, edit that, and you should see it's gone green when I look at the device state. And there we are. The directory has a bulk enrollment token, so we are good to continue. We'll save that, and we do have a working runbook. Excellent. Now let's look at the MigrationWiz console again, just quickly. These have come back, completed the verification, which is great. So we will now kick them off with a full migration, and we are going to do everything there, including all of these items, as you can see. And we'll start it straight away. We just hit start migration, and that will then go into a submitted state and start that process. Let's now set up the batch. So what we'll do here is we will hit create under, you can see batches, and then create. We'll give it a name, and we just call this one like that, demo batch 1. The source directory is the Cozy Mouse tenant, and the target is going to be the TCG tenant. And you can see here we need to add the runbook. So we'll add the runbook, which is Cozy Mouse demo, and we put the date and time it's available from and when it's enforced. So this means that we can make it available right now, as you can see there, and actually we'll probably make it like 5. It will complain that it's in the past in a few seconds, but there we go. So there, 6 p.m, and we're going to enforce it tomorrow. So we can say that it's available on, say, a Friday night as an optional where people can run it, or we're going to enforce it to say they have no choice. They have to run it after a certain date. And we might say, looking at that, we just say 6 p.m. or 7, and make it 6 p.m. on Thursday. They have to run it. And what time zone is that? It's going to be local. So we'll hit OK for that. And yes, we do. And then we go down to the computers. Now, with the computer listing here, you can see we can do all computers except the list, or no computers except the list. So in this case, we're going to pick one of them. So we'll have no computer except for, and we'll add in, and you can see it knows we want to do Lando PC 100. That's the one we're after, and we'll add that in, and it drops it in here. So there we go, and we'll hit save on that one. And now you can see this batch is all set up. Now we just go back and view that one. You'll see that there's our settings, available from, available after, and we just have a quick run through here just to make sure we're okay. And definitely there is the list of machines which are going to migrate. So we hit OK on that. And we're not quite ready to trigger that in terms of the workstations yet. That in this particular demo at 6 p.m, which is very, very shortly, it's going to start prompting up that user to say, yep, you can now migrate across to the new tenant. We're not quite ready because we've still got to do the move the domain and do all that work. But so in a normal situation, you'd put that obviously on the date that you want to have these migrations running. But this is now set. This is actually all we need to do here. This is now ready to go. Everything else is done now on the client side, on the desktop itself. So we can leave PowerSyncPro for now, and we're going to jump back into the MigrationWiz and just check on the status of those, the OneDrive and the mailbox copies, make sure they're full, because what we'll we'll do after they've completed is we will then remove the domain from the source tenant, add it into the target tenant, change the UPNs accordingly, and then we're ready to go there. So we can then tell the users they're ready to migrate, and they can start working on those workstations and bring those across too. So looking in our console, we can see the mail is now migrated over to the new target tenant. So now our next job is to pull the Migration Frog domain from the source tenant, the Cozy Mouse tenant, and we'll get it moved over to the TCG tenant. So let's go into the console and do that now. So removing a domain is pretty easy. In the domains here, we just go into the domain and you can say remove. Now there are consequences obviously because there are accounts and things that are using that domain, so it's always a good idea just to look at users here and just to see who is using it, and with Teams or any apps or any other processes that might happen. And you can see I've got 3 users here. Now if I just pull that automatically and say I don't care, we're just going to strip the domain out and get it done, these are going to get replaced with like a GUID of the address, so it's going to look a little bit strange. So you could go through and change them all first and then treat it that way. It's kind of a good way to do it rather than let the system do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm going to take Lando's account and I'm going to give him a new UPN of the Cozy Mouse, and then I'm going to remove the domain. But I'm not going to do that for these two, just so you can see the difference on what I'm talking about. So let's go into the users here. And let's have a look at Lando's. Let me get down here. And let's just go and change his username and email. What we'll do here is we'll actually put it in and call it Lando Norris, and under Cozy Mouse, add that in, and we'll change it to make it his primary. Now we can obviously do this with a script as well. If we're doing more than 1 or 2, definitely we'll be scripting all of this out. But in this particular example, it's okay just to hit that one. So we keep it as Cozy Mouse. There we go. That's accepted that. You can see it's changed here. So if we go back to the domains now and back to Migration Frog, if I look at users again, it'll refresh. Now obviously it's got this one here. It still has an alias here because what it does is it adds or changes that, but it keeps the old one there. So I'm going to show you what it does when all this goes through. So let's now remove domain, and we'll just hit automatically remove. And let's come back in a short while once it's done that, and we'll see what effect it's made there. You can see there we are, domain removal in process. Okay, a few refreshes later, we can see that it's now gone. And let's have a look at the users and see what they look like now. If I just do a refresh on there. So let's have a look at Lando. And Lando we're expecting to be the Cozy Mouse, which we have here. And look at Fernando's account. It's gone to a GUID address at cozymouse.onmicrosoft.com, which is, it still works as an account, but it's not really a usable scenario there. And if we look at Oscar as well, he's probably done the same thing. Yeah, he's done the same thing. So therefore, it's quite a good idea if you want to be able to look at these later on. Definitely you want to be changing that name. Sometimes even put like a dummy domain in there, like purchase a domain with a .info or something really cheap, just with a silly name on it, just to change them all to that, so at least you've got a reference point for that. But that's entirely up to you how you handle that. But that domain is now gone from the Cozy Mouse tenant, so let's go and add it into the TCG tenant now. And inside here, I'm going to hit the add domain option, and we'll add that in. So we put in our migrationfrog.com, use this domain, there we go. Now we're going to do a short verification with the host of the domain, which is obviously a GoDaddy account. I'm just going to do this and let it go through, so just bear with me while I just stop that while I add that in. There we go, quick verification there. And how do we want to connect it? Yes, we'll continue. The DNS records are basically the same. We are going to do a little bit of work later on DKIM. And so what we could do here is in the advanced options, we can actually just, I don't want those, I don't need Skype, I'll add the Intune, but I'm going to put the DKIM as well. It's actually handy here to have these created by, you can see here it's just going to do the normal GoDaddy thing and connect. By this portion here, it's actually quicker than going to try and add them in yourself later on if you get the chance to do that. And then of course you get the DKIM configured immediately, which is kind of nice too. So hitting down there, you can see now we have Migration Frog. So we will now go into our users. And again, if you had lots of users, you're going to be scripting this. Certainly you wouldn't want to go through every single one of them on their own. But here you can see we've got Lando. So we'll take him first of all. And all we're doing here is just changing his name. And we're just going to add it in. And this is why, obviously, you'd want to script this out realistically. Because it is quite a lot to do if you've got a ton of them. So there we are, Lando at Migration Frog. So which is good now, because it means that in the back end of the system, anything that goes through to the email system for Migration Frog is going to hit this tenant now, and it's going to hit his account. So that's obviously an important function. But you can see Fernando had the Planium. We're just going to change him as well to, here we are, the Migration Frog as well. There we go. Add that, make it primary. Great. All done there. So you can see now, if he pops back into this screen, you can see our two accounts are the two Migration Frog accounts. As I say, completely fine to log in and use them. I am just going to do a quick password reset on those ones. There we go. Now you might want to do that across the board with all your accounts as well, just to make sure they're set correctly. And you can make it so the user changes them when they first sign in, and do the MFA setup, that type of thing as well. But in this particular case, we're just going to set them as what we know them to be. So really, from a MigrationWiz side, and certainly from a tenant side, we're done. The back-end work is now done. Everything's coming into Migration Frog successfully there, and the accounts are ready for logging in. What we do need to come back to now is obviously the workstation. So we're going to shoot over to the workstation for Lando, and we should find, what I'm expecting is the PowerSyncPro has got a little pop-up on it telling us that the migration is available to be used. So let's jump into that machine. There we are. And there he is. Look at that. PowerSyncPro says, yep, they had a migration that could be run now. It will be forced to occur on tomorrow at 6 p.m. But in this case now, we can actually hit the start button and get that machine brought over. So let's do that. We'll just hit start, and we'll just keep recording on this session and see everything that it does. And we'll see all those settings that we had as it came through as well. So, and of course it happens very quickly, which is nice. A couple of reboots, and then it's good to log in again. So, but we can check this out though. As I say, I'll keep it running while it's doing this, just so you can see the extent of what it is actually going to be working on, and changing things over in here. So what it's doing in the background is a bit of commentary there. It's going through everything and updating every instance of the tenant ID and the object GUID that relate to the old tenant. It's replacing them with the same objects for the new system. So there we go. It's having a restart. Now this particular agent, as it were, that comes up, and for the Splashtop, the system I use for the remote control, does tend to just lag behind during a restart. It's just going to make that new connection, and it will certainly come back pretty soon. There we are, reconnecting. That's a physical machine here. I'm actually looking around and I can see it rebooting in the background here. But obviously for the purpose of the recording, I've got a Splashtop client that's making it available to this machine instead. So, and there we go. It's come up. It's actually logging on with that separate admin account we said, and now it's doing another restart. So once again, I'm looking over my shoulder. I can see it restarting in the background as well. So that's the second restart that it's going to do. And remember, I've had no interaction with this machine. I just said start, and I've just left it. I haven't touched a thing on it. There we are. Another reconnect. So I'm trying to give this this session the best possible recording it can in terms of what's going on here, but really what we're seeing is that this is the second restart, no interaction yet, and we'll see what comes through on the next time it boots. Okay, so here we go, final one here. So I'm going to now, what we need to do is log in as Lando. So we go in here. Lando Norris, migrationfrog.com, same UPN that he is used to with that password. And that brings us in, as I say, logging in with the new UPN. And we'll take a look around his machine once it decides to come in. So it's obviously coming for the first time with the new profile or the profile changes that it's made. Okay, so there we are. First time in for the actual user. After those couple of reboots, we get to set up hello again, because obviously the account itself is now brand new on the TCG tenant. So there are certain things we are going to have to do, and this is going to be one of them. So let's go through and do that. Just hit OK here, and it's going to ask us to set up the MFA. So I will just go through and do that just quickly. So we just go through this process with you and scan. There we go. Scan the QR code. Excellent. And next we get that number to put in. There we go, 67. Okay, that's all done. Nice. And we can create that new pin there. Okay. Let's go there. And there we go. Migration agent has now completed. Nice. So we hit OK on that. And now we can have a look around the machine and let's see if it is actually connected to the new tenant. I'm sure it is. Let's go and confirm everything and have a look around what the user would see. So first of all, let's jump into Outlook. There we are, there's our loading profile. Now what I'm expecting is that it's going to basically create a brand new profile for him and then bring the mail down. When we did the setup for the user experience, we did say that it's going to be set to that like the 0 config. And that's, yeah, you can see it all coming in the background there. So really it's like a fresh version of Outlook for him, as you can see here. But it is obviously bringing the mail down, which is related to that. That's just all the mail that we did migrate across to the TCG tenant. So you can see it's coming in very quickly, which is nice to see. So I will just go to the view and turn off the focused inbox and just make that just a bit bigger. Arrange by, we can see, current view, message preview, we'll turn that off. They can configure it how they need to, but you can see everything has come across, which is nice to see. So the Outlook looks like it's good. So let's go and have a look at the OneDrive. What we will need to do is, I know we are going to need to sign in because again on the settings there we did put the 0 config on the OneDrive, which did require us to then go and sign in for that. As you can see down the bottom there, OneDrive signed in. So you're going to need to do a few things in terms of OCM to tell users what to do. All the data is there, and you can see it was very easy. We just started Outlook and it came up with this profile. But they do need to know that it is going to take a little while to bring all the data down depending on the size of their mailbox. But here for OneDrive, you can see it's not connected. We do need to sign in. We just hit sign in and it'll come up with his address. We hit sign in there and that will do the job. And it'll ask us about the OneDrive, but you can see that's the one we told it about before, OneDrive, the Cloud Geyser. Obviously that's the name of the tenant, and we will use that folder because it says it's already got one on the PC already, because obviously it's the same profile. So there we go, that's good. Start back up there and you'll find that everything is now going to come back in. So we'll say later for that, and there we go. And if we look at that, you'll see that the documents are there, which is good. That's everything we expected in the documents folder. That's the data we had on the old profile, but you can see it's now sitting in the OneDrive on the new tenant. Now we can decide on there what we want to have synced down to the machine, whether it's just cloud only or what have you, but that's up to the users and what they want to do. Generally, we might say documents, we'd say always keep on this device. As I say, it's completely up to the users how they want to work with that. But it means that OneDrive and Outlook, you can see there was very, very little to do. Nothing to do on the Outlook side. You just basically just run it up and she's there. On the OneDrive, you do need to sign in, obviously, and that fixes all this up as well. So let's jump into Teams. Now you recall we didn't actually do a Teams migration as such. We didn't bring anything across with private chats or anything like that. But you can see that he's joined the Cloud Geezer group, and you can see here on the General tab that will be part of that particular channel. But you can see it has logged in to the new tenant under the name Lando Norris at Migration Frog. You can see there completely seamlessly. There was nothing to do there. So any channels that came across that they are a member of, you're going to see them appear in here if they are a member of channels. You can see there, but we just got chat. So there's really nothing to do on the Teams. They just open it up and then they can go ahead and use that. So really for SharePoint, let's bring up a browser window, and you can see I've already got that there. The main SharePoint site for TCG is obviously available because we are logged in with the Migration Frog, and any other sites that they want to be a part of, they can put the URL in there and they can get to those. But really, you can see there's the My Sites there. If you were a member of those, they would obviously populate and you can see what you're used to. But obviously with SharePoint sites, we need the URL to access them. They would be notified as to what they are. But you can see straight away SharePoint is working with the correct UPN, and we are good on that score. So let's have a look at the settings. Let's have a look at the machine itself. You can see it should have the same name. Here we are, Lando PC100, which is nice to see. And if we have a look at the system, you can see there, well, first of all, there's the UPN there as a start. But if we look at the about here, just for the machine itself, we can see in terms of specs, it was installed on the 6th of November, which is previously, that's when this machine was built. And obviously that build stays the same because we haven't, we certainly haven't changed anything in terms of the build itself. We've just changed the core GUIDs and everything to point to the new tenant, which you can see it is because obviously the migrationfrog.com exists on the new tenant, not the old one. So what we're really seeing here is a very easy way to have the workloads in the background with the MigrationWiz product, and we can obviously migrate some of the SharePoint doc libraries and Teams if you wanted to. In this demo, I've kept it to just the OneDrive and the mailboxes. But the main thing here is about with the machine migration is that was very, very easy for the users. All they did was they would have clicked on, yes, I'm going to migrate my machine now. And when it came up asking them for their password, they put that in. We did have to set up the MFA for the new tenant, and we set up a new PIN for the machine. But of course, you'd include that in all your OCM material that goes out to the users. So that would be relatively easy to do. But there's nothing really configuration-wise that we had to do. If a user follows their nose, if you pardon the expression, and just goes through and just finds things out for themselves, when they go into things like OneDrive, they'll see it's not logged on, so they can log on with their UPN. And when they run up Outlook for the first time, bam, yeah, the mail comes down fine. Teams didn't need to do anything. So really, it is a very seamless approach for a migration of both the back-end workloads and also the front-end machines. And that's always been the problem. The front-end machines have always been either needing a rebuild, or they don't point to the right place or anything. But with these two tools together, with MigrationWiz and the PowerSyncPro together, you can see how easy it was for us to do a migration. Okay, and clearly we did one user effectively, but that does scale very, very easily up to 100, 1,000, or even more, depending on how you work out your runbooks and your batches and your machines. You'd have a bit of scripting in the background for some of these larger tasks that you might do with changing UPNs and things, but you can get the concept of what I'm talking about here. It really is a much easier way to migrate everybody, and it means that you could hit 100 machines and have them automatically migrating on the Monday morning when people come in, and have a whole migration done with a single person over that period of time, making it easy. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you on this session. I hope that was valuable. Please reach out if you've got any questions on things, but otherwise please enjoy working with MigrationWiz and the PowerSyncPro products together, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching again.